Welcome back, everybody, to the Nevin Shapiro Show. I'm Mike Tirado. I'm here with Nevin Shapiro, and today we have a very, very special guest, Coach Davis, Calvin Davis of the Monarch Knights high school football team. Man, today we got a loaded episode for you guys. For you guys that don't really know, first of all, he's my former coach at Monarch. I'm a graduate of 2014 Monarch Knights, and it's all love, man. It's all love from Coach. So we're going to talk recruiting, we're going to talk NIL, and of course, we're going to talk some Miami Hurricanes football. Before the video starts, please click that subscribe button that's going to appear on your page right here. And as always, let's get into the action.
Before we do get into the action, I've got a very important question for Coach Davis.
Oh, go ahead and shoot.
You know, I meant to really ask it when we had our brief speaking session 2 weeks ago. Coach, how do you turn a 5-star into a walk-on? I mean, can you give me that answer, Coach? I mean, this guy, all I hear are Glory Days songs from this guy, man. And I'm like, this is your coach? I'm like, man, I hear about all these big name riders, and what happened with you?
He's one of my favorite players, though. Like, he was great to coach, though. Like, he was one of the best.
I was a nut job, man.
Oh,
I was fucking crazy, man. I just would go and I didn't care. I had that that was all I thought about was those crazy Miami games, you know, how these guys just had their hair on fire. That's how I played. I was never big. I knew I was probably never going to make it to college.
At the very least, you should have been head equipment guy. You have underperformed.
I'm telling you, would have been great at it, too.
I'm sorry to knock you off your...
That was Rinaldi.
I'm sorry to knock you off your kilter.
Hey, everyone that played for the Monarch Knights knows Rinaldi, man. Best water boy equipment guy ever, man.
He was the special teams MVP, though. Like, he was a
little nut job, too.
I'm talking about you.
Oh, well, yes, yeah. I was a JV defensive MVP, too. Coach Murphy, God rest his soul, man. What a great guy. Coach Miller.
Yes.
Yep. So
let's go, man. Let's go. I just had a...
I love how he threw that in the beginning. I mean, I was going to say, for the viewers that are just getting to know you, you know, how did your coaching career start from the beginning, just so they can kind of get to know you a little bit?
Well, right after college, I had a couple JV jobs. Mm-hmm. Right then, I knew I wanted to coach. I was looking for a job. So I came home. My high school coach hired me at Monarch High School to coach JV, and the rest is history.
Awesome.
That's how I got started.
And who would you say that you looked up the most, like as from a coaching perspective, like to get into coaching? Was there someone you wanted to emulate?
I would have to say my dad. Like, he coached my brother and all my friends from the time we were like 7 up until we were about 13, 14, till we went to high school. So just watching him coach, being at home, talking football, watching the Miami Hurricanes every weekend, and just, watching him do it, that was my inspiration. He's the one that got me into it.
So you've always wanted to become a head coach?
I always knew I'd be a coach.
Okay.
Like, my goals when I graduated college, coach, win a state championship. Like, those were my beginning goals. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. And do you have aspirations to coach at the next level now?
I do. I believe I should have already been on the next level. So I'm just biding my time and hoping someone gives me an opportunity, because I could get it done.
Any doesn't matter? You go anywhere? I'll
go anywhere.
So you'll relocate?
Of course.
Okay.
My kids are in college, so
he's at the right spot. Okay. He might have traveled into the right lines then here with that.
He might have found the right connection.
Yeah, you may end up there on a referral, but obviously you can't use my name. You'd be going to the back of the food line real quick.
Oh, so I want to bring up a story, Coach, from back when we had our days, and this is going to allude into a couple of topics that we're going to talk about. I just remember Sean Burgess-Becker was a big player, obviously, when we were, in our tenureship of 2013, 2014. And I remember me and him were at the McDonald's on Lyons Road next to the school. And he tells me, hey, man, my brother, Calvin Ridley, is going to come join our team. The guy is insane. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm thinking he's probably good. But first practice, we show up, man, and you had Michael Harris, our quarterback, throw just a go route to Calvin Ridley against our best corner, Ronnie Hoggins. For those of you who don't know who Ronnie Hoggins is, started all 4 years at USF. Great corner. Man, Calvin Ridley went up and just upped. I was like, oh my God, this kid is going to be insane. Insane. And you've coached some really notable names. So the people that don't realize, like you've coached Jerry Judy, Calvin Ridley, Greg Rousseau, who just got a re-upped big major contract, Xavier Restrepo, who's about to go into the NFL. Did you foresee these guys like having success at the next level and then even the level after?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Some kids, they just got it. Like you could look at kids from the first day of practice and understand like this kid is different. Calvin was different. Jerry was different. Restrepo was different. I mean, he was first team All-County as a freshman and a sophomore at Monarch, but still wasn't getting noticed. Like no one still knew who he was until he went to St. Thomas and got 15, 20 offers. So, I mean, and then with Calvin, Sean told me the same thing. I was like, whatever. He can't be that good.
Yep.
And then I watched this film. As soon as I watched this film, I called 5 coaches. And they were like, we'll see what happens. They all regretted it afterwards that they weren't the first one to offer.
Wow. Man, that still breaks my heart. We'll get into it that he didn't go to Miami, man. I wanted him to go so bad to the U. So what's your perspective on that? I mean, we'll get into it now. We might as well. Like, what's your perspective on why guys like Calvin and Sean and those guys, why they didn't end up staying home?
Well, they were going to go to Miami.
Okay.
They had press conference set. They were all ready to commit to the University of Miami. And something happened. Something happened before they were ready to do their announcement. They canceled it, and the rest is history.
I could tell you what happened. For one, I was locked up. And the guy that made it happen should have been locked up. That's what happened. For all you haters out there that think that we've sucked for no reason.
Yeah.
It's a relationships. I mean, it's recruiting. It's being able to form a relationship with those guys, with their coaches, with their families. And Mario was just different. Like, when he came to the school to recruit, he recruited. Like, he knew your aunt, your uncle, your cousin. He knew everybody. He knew what it was going to take, who it was going to take, who he had to be in contact with consistently to get those things done.
Who was the coach at that time for Alabama where Jerry Judy ended up going, Calvin Ridley ended up going?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Was
it Mario?
Who was recruiting them?
Mario was their recruiter.
That's
so for anyone who out there who doesn't understand, that's the power. That's the power of what a recruiter, his true value is for a university. And that's why Nick Saban deserves incredible credit for keeping that train moving for so many years, a decade plus, because whenever coaches were to reach the end of their tenure or were to get fired or whatever, that doesn't make them a bad head coach. It just meant they couldn't compete with the Alabama, per se, of the world. And so if you can't beat them, join them. And Nick Saban was right there on point to pick up a lot of guys off the scrap heap or keep them near. And that's how that recruiting machine continues. Mario Cristobal, Butch Jones from Tennessee. Don't forget where Kirby Smart came from. Don't forget where Will Muschamp came from. All these other coaches from that tree, which was really the impetus of that Alabama machine for so many years. And Mario Cristobal was a big cog from a recruiting standpoint in South Florida. And he's no dummy. He grew up down here. So if you're going to dominate an area, you want to dominate South Florida.
Right.
100%.
His relationships here is different. Like, he knows every high school coach. He knows every trainer. He knows everybody. If he was still at the University of Miami during that time, I think he had just left maybe a year before. They would have still been at Miami.
Yeah, and I knew when he left Al Golden's situation, he was going to come back. I wasn't around at that time. But keep in mind, I had a very good relationship with Mario going back pre-FIU. And I always knew that he was going to be in that Miami mix. And if I had had my way before going away, he would have been closer. I don't think he was ready. However, you got to take your you got to do your mentorship program, and sometimes run a smaller program. And I think when he really took off is when he went to coach for under Nick Saban.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's just a priceless internship, as you're learning firsthand.
Absolutely. So the guy that really, I asked you this question because the guy that shocked me the most was Greg. Greg just had this unbelievable size, but I really didn't know how it was going to translate to college in the NFL. Because if you remember, and I know you do, and this is not a knock to Greg because
Greg Rousseau is who you're referring to.
Greg Rousseau, who I'm referring to. Marvin Rousseau, his brother, had 10 times the
Talent,
just brutal mindset too. The guy was an animal. I mean, would just knock your head off, smart, new coverages, new schemes. And, if Marvin had Greg's size, man, would he have really, so I never, and then when Greg went to Miami under Mandy Diaz, he just went nuts, man. Guy was just sacking everyone.
Well, he had the talent, but in high school he played safety, he played a receiver, he played linebacker. He was all over the place just making plays. So you knew in that situation at 6'6", you put him at defensive end, that athletic, that talented, he was just going to make plays.
Yeah, that wingspan was unbelievable.
Coach, let me ask you a question. When you see a new transfer or incoming player coming into your program, can you spot right away the difference between him and, let's say, an average high school football player that may translate into crazy success next level?
Yes.
Easy to spot?
For me, it is.
Yeah.
For example, Ronnie Hoggins, he led the nation his senior year in interceptions with like 16, and he returned the first 8 games of the season. He returned an interception for a touchdown.
Wow.
But he started as a receiver. I seen him doing the ladder drill. I was like, buddy, you go in the corner.
You knew right away.
I knew right away. You're going to the corner and you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
As far as Calvin and Jerry and those guys played football every Saturday, every Sunday, outside, no shoes, just running around. Like, you kind of knew those guys were just different.
Yeah, Stevie Wonder could see it.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah. I know certain guys like that along the way, man. Yeah, it's just so obvious. And there's so many examples that I can make from guys that I witnessed myself. I'm not a coach, but I'm a really strong nose for talent, especially at football, because I love it so much, and it comes natural. Yeah, I was curious about that. I have a follow-up question, separate lane. So if you were to get a college coaching job, you'd obviously you'd have recruiting responsibilities in South Florida, as would be expected. This is your home. How would you go about recruiting against a University of Miami? Let's say you ended up at one of the local schools, FIU of South Florida, just throwing it out there, right? How do you recruit against a Miami? Like, what's your pitch? How do you do it? A, being a University of Miami fan, and B, knowing like it's got the big name brand. How would you like?
I think once again it comes down to relationships, and you being at a smaller school, you have to have an eye for talent. Like, some things other people may not see, but if you're a really good recruiter, if you're a really good coach, you see those things, and you also understand that Miami can't get every kid. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be very selective in
that are going to fall off the truck. Yeah.
So there's going to be great players. Those kids that end up at a Louisville, those kids that end up at a West Virginia, even a kid that goes all the way to Ole Miss, you may be able to get that kid depending on your relationship with the coach.
Right. And and I saw the changing of the guard with the University of Miami's dominance in the 80s through the late 80s into the early 90s. And that's when the country caught wind of what this South Florida, and plus the scholarships, I think, went from 105 to 85, if I'm not mistaken, definitely 85. And a lot of those kids that maybe Miami were to have gotten, the West Virginias of the world, were starting to creep in. And that's when the parity really started nationally. And that's why I asked that question. And you know how it is, Coach. You've been down here your whole life. A 3-star in South Florida is really closer to a 5-star elsewhere.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
not Texas and maybe not California. There's certain spots where you give them their props and their due.
Yeah.
But definitely in other places, I would love to see a 5-star out of Delaware compared to a 5-star out of South Florida.
No, for sure.
And I'm just pulling Delaware out of, Iowa, Minnesota, wherever.
Right.
It's just there's levels to this
100%.
game.
And now you can even have someone as a 3-star, let's just say even in South Florida, and he could go to a school, and because of the new NIL structure, he can just showcase his talent for a year and then boop, and then switch over.
Right.
So that was going to be actually my segue question here is, like, as you being a head coach for a lot of years in South Florida, what's your opinion on this whole NIL Wild West craziness right now?
I think that's a great recruiting pitch. If I'm an FIU or something like that, and I see a kid, I'll tell that kid, hey, man, you could come play here, start early, say he's a receiver, get 1,000 yards. Yeah, you may make 40, 30,000 here this year, but after this year, you're going to go make 500,000.
Yeah, it's an audition.
Come play.
It's an audition.
Yeah.
It's an audition. And I've been having these conversations. Yep. I've been having these conversations personally with guys. Obviously, I don't discuss the money. I'm not in that game. But, like, you got to start looking at this as a branding business, man. Like, these are auditions. These are no longer 4-year scholarship offers. These are, like, year-by-year deals. And, I think, I'm wondering, Coach, so how do you, let's say I'm one of your players, like, how do you lead how do you guide one of your players now if you know there's a great football decision he can make? And let's just use one of the blue bloods in Ohio State and Michigan, the names, Notre Dame, but there's a lot more money being offered, let's say, from like maybe a Power 5, but a much smaller Power 5 brand, an Arizona. You can use the name. You pick a team, any team, a Vanderbilt, but an SEC big conference. How do you guide now one of your players? That's a very difficult spot, I gotta believe.
Well, you have to have honest conversation with those coaches, and then have honest conversations with your kids, because we had a couple of kids this year that were committed to schools, but late, like big time college playoff Power 4 teams tried to come in late. But we asked honest questions. Is he going to play? Is he a developmental player for you? Like, what are you looking for? Like, what is the end game for him? And they were honest. He's a development player for us, but we're willing to do what we need to do to get him. But like we said, I'd rather send a kid somewhere else so he can play right now, develop, and that payday will come later after their freshman year, after their sophomore year. Instead of just sitting on the bench trying to develop them, they're playing. So they're getting exposure. They're getting opportunities.
Right.
It's different than when Miami was good in 2000, 2001. That roster was loaded. Kids are not sitting anymore. Kids don't want to sit. They want to play.
Yeah.
And I remember one of going back to that era, John Beeson. John Beeson came in as a DB, but he wanted to be the next Sean Taylor, but he just wanted to play. And he said, man, move me to fullback. Whatever I got to do, I just want to be on the field. And I remember, and he was, God bless him, he ended up playing himself into a massive contract and becoming a great NFL linebacker. Led the league in tackles, I believe, 1 year, and was second like two or 3 years. But yeah, guys they do it right. They want to play. Yeah, and you have to understand it, because really now every year counts, man. These are audition years.
Yeah.
Like, and you only got so many runs.
You have a year and a half to maybe 2 before the school starts pushing you out. Because if you're not producing, they're not wasting time anymore.
Yeah.
Guys, jobs are on the line, and they need guys that can play. And that's why high school recruiting is becoming almost non-existent, because they could go get that same kid out the portal who's been in college for 2 years, who's developed, who's been on campus, who understands the landscape of college, as opposed to a high school kid that may take a year or 2.
Yeah. And to touch on what Coach is saying, and this is good information for the viewers about like what today's current state of recruiting is. This is real, man. This is what it is. Like, everyone watches the flash in the game itself, but this is what sets up to the game. And like I could tell you I certainly won't drop any names, but there were probably about 7 to 10 players, you know this, that families have reached out to me. They were still at current schools, but they had to get into the portal, but they didn't have a home, but they're ready to get into the portal for one. And the first question I get from whoever I may say, listen, can you look into this guy? First question I get is, you got film on him? And if there's no film, you're stuck like Chuck. You're stuck. And these players are like in a hurry to run. So for everyone that says, well, it's about the bag and this and that, it sort of has to be, because there's no time to wait. You're an old man if you're 2 years into the college game and you haven't gotten burned. Is that a correct statement?
It is, because those guys that are at the big schools that are not playing, it's a trickle-down effect. A lower FCS will take those guys over a high school kid because they're coming from a big-time school. They were a 3-star, 4-star in high school, so they have talent. They just didn't get an opportunity at the school they were at because there was more talent. And then those FCS kids that would have got those offers, it goes down to NAIA, D3, D2.
Yeah, and because of these NIL rules, like I sit back and you know how many questions I get on my DMs and whatnot. It's almost like there's really like a stash mode you can go into and stash like a crop of dudes at a JUCO and say, you know what, package deal, you're all coming. You want one, you're taking all, and you start the bidding. That's what it's become, such a business that it's no longer your grandfather's recruiting cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not where it is anymore.
And that's why I was actually going to follow up with this question for Coach. Let's just play a scenario that you had control in the NCAA. What would you do differently as far as this NIL structure? Like, what would you do maybe differently to calm this whole thing, maybe give it a little bit of structure?
Well, they're going to a revenue sharing. So they're going to put a cap on how much money each school can spend.
Do you agree with that, or would you do it any differently?
I think so, because it's like they say, it's turning into a bidding war. For high school kids, it's a little more structured unless you're a 5-star. They really want to pay the kids that have been there, that have put in the work, that have produced on the field. But those guys some of them are getting overpaid, because it's just like in the NFL or any other sport. Sometimes you have to overpay for a kid because you need him.
Yep, absolutely. And you just brought this up, and I was going to touch on this later, but might as well just do it now. You brought up this 01 Hurricanes. We've had a lot of dialogue, and Nevin knows in the last couple weeks, our videos have gone really viral on this whole 2001 Miami and 2019 LSU debate. I mean, people are going nuts over this whole debate. I don't know why, but they just are. What's your perspective? You grew up in that era as well, and now as a coach, like, what's your perspective on that whole debate?
Okay, look at it like this. Yes, the Hurricanes were good, right? They were really good. But that LSU offense averaged, 48 points a game? Back then, Miami played, 3 linebackers? It wasn't where they had 5, 6 defensive backs on the field. So I don't know if they could stop that offense. Like, Miami will probably score, but I think LSU will score a lot of points. I mean, that's just the landscape of it and what they were doing. Joe Barrow, those guys were just explosive. And like you say, I'm a Hurricane fan. But
I'm surprised you're giving this dialogue. I was surprised.
But I'm a realist. It's just...
So what's your score? What would be a score prediction? You think Miami loses the game?
I'll say 48-37.
We take the L?
Yeah, we take the L.
Okay.
Wow.
So my response is, I love Coach. Man, talking about Willis.
I knew this was coming.
Listen, you know my position.
Yeah.
I can't keep hammering it. I don't want to spend our
every time we get a guest.
I
just would like to ask.
Yeah, I have different opinions on it, because I just know that defense was Swiss cheese. That LSU defense was Swiss cheese. They gave up 1,500 yards to Texas, Florida, and Alabama. 3 games, over 1,500 yards total offense. We'd run that ball right down their throat, and they'd be choking, and there's nothing they'd be able to do to stop it. Nothing. Our play action passes, we'd be throwing our little underneath seam to Shockey or Winslow. They would just be eating lunch on that team all day long, and they wouldn't be on the field for those type of stretches. And our defense, listen, let's face it, our linebackers could run with their receivers. Different style rules from 2001 and that 2019 team, right? That bump and run shit, they cut it all out. But Antrell Rowe was one of the most physical corners you'll ever see. He literally beat, I know firsthand because I had a hand in it, he beat up Calvin Johnson, who's arguably top 5 all time NFL, coming off the line when he was a freshman at Georgia Tech. We would have punished those dudes off the line. We'd have fucked them up for real. Like, we would have beat the fuck out of them. I'm just telling you. I love Coach, but, that's just how I take.
The 2000 team.
2000 team had Reggie Wayne and Santana. They left. 2001 had Andre Johnson, Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow, our 3 running backs.
Roscoe Parrish was off the bench, so he was a redshirt or a freshman at that time, so he wasn't really involved. It was just too deep, and the rules were different then, and the players and this and that. So obviously we couldn't get a full. But just real quick for edification purposes, let me just give you our 8 guys in the secondary. Ready? Ed Reed, Hall of Fame, first round. Mike Rump, first round. Phil Buchanan, first round. James Lewis, third round. Sean Taylor off the bench, first round, should be Hall of Fame. Antrell Rowe, first round. Kelly Jennings, first round. Al Marshall, fifth round.
All right, can I change it?
Well, then you have John Vilma, who also went.
We're not going to go rehash the whole Miami LSU thing because it's not fair for Coach's spotlight.
No, I know.
But I will.
Listen,
but
he has his own opinion. That's fine. I just wanted to ask the question.
But there's just. I mean, I could go on for days. There's just not an LSU. And listen, at the end of the day, Ed Orgeron told the guys at the U, the former players he knows, man, you guys were just different. He knows what it is. He knows. He's a coach. He can see the guys in front of him, and he knows who would really be dominant if watching both guys. People could have an argument, but deep down he knows. And he's not wrong also for that. That LSU offense was incredible and sexy and fluid, and everyone loved them. But then you get into the X's and O's and really what gets down, and that our defensive line would control. That's really where the game would be different.
Yeah.
Who was on that defensive line?
Oh, hold on. Let me get this.
Ready?
Okay. Jerome McDougal, first round pick. William Joseph, first round pick. Vince Wilfork, Hall of Fame, didn't even play. Matt Walters, who was he was there just so they could hold Vince back so he could come back the next year. Santonio Thomas, Andrew Williams, Cornelius Green, Jamal Green, Orion Harris. 9 guys. 9-man rotation with 8 of them going to the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about our linebackers. John Vilma, Chris Campbell, who died, God rest his soul, would have been a second-round pick, maybe a third-round pick. DJ Williams, Rocky McIntosh.
Yeah. And then our 3 running backs, Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee, Frank Gore.
And Najee Davenport, 4.
That would have been a good game.
It would have been I think it would have been a good game too. They would have scored some points for sure. But
and then let's just look at the talent yardage-wise in the NFL next level. Miami's running backs, 36,000 yards total.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
1,891 yards.
Yeah, no, it's.
Listen, if there was a mic, if this thing wouldn't come up, I'd drop it.
He did a good job. I cannot change my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, every guest we have on, we ask this question because it's really everyone's been going. I do, because everyone's been going crazy about it. But so let's get back into your guys currently. Let's bring it back real quick. So you have right now 4 players committed to D1 colleges: Brian Auguste to Kentucky, Samari Reed to Ole Miss, Antoine Parnham to Tulane, and Ramondo Johnson to West Virginia. Out of those 4 guys, who would you see having the most immediate impact at the next level right away?
I would say my receivers, because it takes a little bit longer for offensive linemen to develop on that level. The other kid, Ramondo, is a defensive end, so he has a chance, but we produce receivers. That's what we do. Our receivers are just different. And I think they'll have a bigger impact on the next level early because they could just do what they do, catch the football and make plays. Antoine Parham's like 6'3.5", 215, solid. He's going to be an impact player. And then Samari Reed is just an athlete. Like, he can return kicks. He can score any way he touches the football. So I think those guys will have a big impact early.
I think he's in a great system too under Lane Kiffin. You know, that air raid kind of offense, and we had the quarterback on here, Austin Simmons. We had, he was on the show. So, I think he's in a great system. Like Lane Kiffin's going to be able to get him that football. That's why I think when I was looking at it, I was thinking maybe Samari Reed would be that guy, next up.
Yeah. Well, for one, he's going to a system that's tailor made for his skill set.
Yeah.
And you cannot underscore that. It's huge. Like if I'm a receiver, and I'm certainly not leading guys to Ole Miss, but like you got the Lane Kiffin throwing, you know what his dynamics are, and he's always going to keep a guy that can toss it, and he's going to have guys that can go with it once they get it, and that's I look forward to seeing that situation evolve for this kid.
Absolutely.
And I think Austin Simmons potentially could be a potential Heisman Trophy winner.
But think about it like this. Imagine if Mario didn't go to Alabama. All of my kids end up at Miami. I'd never meet Lane Kiffin because the only reason I met him because he was at Alabama. So those relationships never form. And
there's a lot of if-then scenarios. And that's how it really goes in that recruiting game. Like your relationships, like Coach said, man, they're really, really important, man. And I always say it, and this is my analogy, the talent in South Florida, specifically in our Tri-County area, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, it's like the Saudis with oil. The resources are just so great, man, down here. Like you really don't have to go 100% all South Florida. You got to get your guys, in other spots. We haven't been notorious for incredible offensive linemen, let's just say. That doesn't mean we don't have some that are incredible. The talent pool down here is just so, you have to dominate. If you're University of Miami, you've got to bring in 6 or 7 of the top 10 players in the Tri-County area. You have to, because the talent is just, they're that type of difference makers.
Yeah.
Look at the guys he coached. Jerry Judy was incredible, and Calvin Ridley was incredible. Now, I wasn't around when they were coming up because I was, tied up in my own situation, but I was still following like that stuff. And those guys had to be top level.
They were number one in their class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Calvin was 5-star.
You can't lose guys like that. If you lose them to a Florida or a Florida State, not that that's easy to live with, but you can deal with it. But you can't lose them to out-of-state places like Ohio State and Alabama. You can't. They should never be able to come in and pull like that. Yeah. Maybe a top 10 kid, but not a top 1 or 2 kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, and we've talked about this on our show before, the whole Al Golden situation, when Calvin Ridley was coming up with Sean Burgess, I went in, they took me into a game with Pete, and Pete Carroll's son was recruiting, Pete Carroll's, it was his son actually.
Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon. He was recruiting them, and it just wasn't fair. We just weren't very good at the time, and I just knew it from the bottom. I wanted him to go so bad, but obviously he made the right decision. He won 2 national championships at Alabama and went to a third one and only lost to Deshaun Watson. So, it just wasn't fair, like you said.
Do you think, like, for some of the trinkets we were talking about adding for the show, like, you can get me one of those ties that Al Golden wore? I want to hang it up on a plant.
I think, like you said, if they were winning at that time, every kid in South Florida loves the University of Miami, and they want to be a Hurricane. It's just a matter of, are they winning at that time?
Yep. We were
kids
terrible.
Play for winners.
If the pipeline starts, like if Mario, and that's why, I get a lot of heat, for like, oh, you're an anti-Mario. No, I'm not an anti-Mario guy. I'm so pissed off that we choked away that situation and opportunity last year. You have a guy who is arguably, and I don't like to throw that word around because it's not for everyone, but a generational talent like a Cam Ward. If you're going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, you have to be almost considered generational, right? You're not going to be that type of in demand if you're not that type of talent, right? They had a golden opportunity, man, and if they could have capitalized on that last year,
it would have been a train.
Man, a train, autopilot, man. Autopilot. And we always knew, going back for the younger fans who may not have been around, when Miami was pushing through, coming back from probation in the late 90s under Butch Davis, when we finally beat Florida State, Shockey caught that touchdown with under a minute left, or right with a minute left.
Beautiful.
We knew everybody who's in Miami we knew we were back. We knew it. We were back. We got over the hurdle. We beat Florida State, who was still at that time the benchmark for the best. The same thing would happen had they got that done last year. Now there's so much unknown and this and that, and that's why it's hard for me to drink the Kool-Aid with these Miami teams under Mario right now. I hope he proves me wrong, and I hope he delivers for us as fans. Forget my situation. You know I'm a diehard, right? And that's why, like, coaches are spot on. If we win, man, they're going to come. They're going to come. Everybody wants a run with the winner.
Yep. And we're going to close with this Miami talk now. And that was actually going to be my next question for Coach was, as a high school coach, how do you feel Mario Cristobal is doing, first of all, and do you think he's the guy to get the job done here?
I think he's the guy to get the job done. And the reason why I say that is this guy left Oregon, where they had won 2 Pac-12 championships. They had just went to the Rose Bowl, I think, to come to the University of Miami because he loves Miami. He loves the Hurricanes. He was tired of seeing them not being competitive, not competing, not being talked about like the old Miami Hurricanes. So I think he's going to get the job done. He wants to get the job done. You could tell the way he's recruiting offensive, defensive linemen. That's where it starts in college. If you can control the trenches and dominate in that area, you can win championships.
Coach is spot on, and that's why I used that same argument against him for his LSU pick. Man, Coach, thank you. Man, you validated me. You got a spot for me on your roster, man. Listen, I know I got some probation issues and some other stuff, man, but I'll come in as a consultant, man. You don't got to pay me, man. I'm just happy to spit game, man, for your crew.
So where do you see like the current trajectory of the program currently?
I think it's going to come down to their defense. Defense wins championships. You got to be able to get some stops, especially in big games. And even though college has changed where offenses are so dynamic, they're going to score a lot of points, but you got to be able to get stops in critical situations. And I think that's what it boils down to, situational football. The new DC, I went to their coaching clinic a couple weeks ago. A very bright guy. I think he's going to do some great things. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. They're going to score points. Mm-hmm. They got the best running backs, I feel, in the country. That offensive line is very good. The whole offensive line comes back and deep. So I think it's going to come down to how many stops they can get in controlling the game.
When Miami's been best, and this is for anyone who has followed the University of Miami knows, when we've been best is when that defensive front was hella nasty.
Yes.
That is who brings the bang. That's where it's decided, man. We've always been dominant on that defensive front. I can go on and on. Everyone knows the names: Jerome Brown, Cortez Kennedy, Russell Mellon, Warren Sapp, Vince Wilfork, Damian Lewis, William Joseph, whoever it is, man, we know what those guys, there's a reason. And I remember when we were sitting down and you had met William Joseph and you're like, man, why can't we get back? Because we used to have 4 of those up front, 4 of them at the same time. You can't run through a wall, man. And when you got a wall, it's hard to perfect your craft from the offensive side of the ball. Yeah. Because the pressure's coming uphill in your face.
If you can dominate up front with your front 4, it helps your whole secondary out because they don't have to cover as long.
Yeah.
Their mistakes are covered up because those 4 guys are causing disruption.
You got 3-4 seconds. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hold your man 3-4 seconds. Where's the?
You could play zone. You could
right.
play man. You could bait them up. You could do whatever you need to do because those guys are getting
controlling.
It done.
So what's your real perspective on why it's been 20 years with all this that we talk about, all the Saudis and oil, all these things, for 20 years? What's the reason, in your perspective, that it hasn't, and Miami has not gotten back to prominence?
I'm going to say, like he said, we're losing our best kids to other schools. When you lose your top 5, if you have top 5 kids in the country in your backyard, you can't lose those kids to out-of-state teams. Those kids come back and beat you every week.
Relentlessly.
Every week.
Yeah, it doesn't
end. You can't have that. You're not going to be great in that situation if you're losing those kids.
Yeah. You cannot lose a Jeremiah Smith. Like, I'm just telling you, you cannot lose a Jeremiah. You can't lose a Jerry Judy. You can't lose a Calvin Ridley. You can't lose those guys.
Yeah.
You know, and credit to Mario. You know, he knew that too. He was on the other side, and that they ended up there. Like, he's not a dummy, man. This is simple math. 1 + 1 = 2. You know, and you can't lose. Like, I would have done anything, and it's no need to run it through the mud. But like Jeremiah Smith, if you got to bring the quarterback with them, Bailey, who was part of the, you know, him, Trader, and you do what you got to do, man. And you package that deal, similar to like what happened with the Northwestern 8 back in the day with Jacory, and just like, it's it's one mob, man, and just you better strengthen numbers than just like one guy here, this and that. It's just that guy won the title for. Oh, he was the difference in that game.
Just in that run too.
I mean,
that Oregon game too. He dominated them. It was so bad.
Yeah, and you cannot lose those guys.
Yeah, that's generational right there.
You can't lose.
That's I'll go on record and say.
Yeah, you can't lose those guys, man. You have to serve on your home court.
So was there a few guys on that Northwestern 8 that it was only like 2 or 3 guys that you wanted, but you had to make it 8 in order for all of them to come?
Well, I can't speak specifically for the coaching staff and what their thoughts were on that, but I do know that there were some alterations made and some provisions made that they knew they had to get whatever. Yeah, I mean, it goes on. Coach could tell you. He knows it.
But I think you can't miss on a lot of kids. Like in recruiting, yes, you're going to miss on kids. Every kid is not going to live up to the standard in which you want it to, but you got to win more than you miss in recruiting. Because if you don't, you have no foundation to build your team on. And therefore, you're going to lose games. Like he said, a 3-star here would be a 5-star in any other state. But if you take that kid, you have to develop him, and then he has to be impactful for 2 or 3 years. And that's how you get Miami back.
Great point, Coach. And here's the segue to that statement. And I know we keep referring to Miami, but let's face it, we were the standard of greatness. So why not use that as your blueprint? Santana Moss, track scholarship, walked on. Reggie Wayne, not a 4 or 5-star. Ed Reed, a 3-star. Butch Davis had an incredible knack to identify personnel and develop it. Hence, that Miami machine that was built.
Right.
That's what he's referring to. And that's what he's referring to. So you can't miss. And a lot of Miami fans, well, the program Nevin Shapiro took. No. What happened was Larry Coker, and gentlemen, you know I always say it, but sometimes coaches get too caught up in 5-star and 4. You got to see a kid. Maybe there's a reason a kid was only a 3-star. He only played a year. Maybe he was going through, and these are young men. Maybe they're going through a family situation that he had all the talent, but maybe he didn't know where his next meal was coming from while he was in 9th or 10th grade. You've really got to kick the tires and see what's there. Those are the special recruiters. Those. Butch Davis recruited Russell, Maryland, way beyond the young man's knowledge. He had 1 scholarship offer to Illinois Wesleyan. He became the Outland Trophy winner, the number 1 player drafted in the NFL. He had 1 scholarship offer, Illinois Wesleyan. Does he deserve that credit? He sure does for playing and building his craft. But Butch Davis found that diamond and polished it up and prepared it. That's what a real coach and scout does.
Yeah. So my personal, and we're going to close with one more question after this, but my personal problem with the NIL is what you're talking about. It's gone away from development, and it's a year-by-year thing. And I think that's what's hurting the University of Miami in certain programs, because especially the smaller programs who are developing, let's just say an FIU T.Y. Hilton, right? Mario develop that guy, right? After that first year, he's gone. Yeah. Everybody's going after him. Ohio State, Miami out. They're throwing the bag at this kid, and he's not staying. Mario wouldn't have had the funds to hold that kid. And that, I think that's more the issue now, is this development. I mean, what do you see as far as?
I agree. Like I said, no one's going to be patient anymore. every coach is win now. They have to win now. In this landscape of college football, they're getting 2, maybe 3 years at the most. And if you're not winning, especially if you're going to a big program, they'll just buy you out and go find the next
horse
guy.
has left the barn, man. This NIL is here to stay. It is big business. Attorneys need to get behind it. Agents, you name it, man. It is redefined sports. It has redefined sports.
Yep.
But I think it also hurts it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because those guys aren't as hungry. They don't want to work as hard.
Mm-hmm.
They have excuses. Like, it's not how it used to be where you had to grind, you had to work, and that payday was the NFL.
Yep.
Now these guys are getting paid more than the coaches.
Great point, Coach.
How are you going to tell me what to do when
Great point.
I'm making more than the coach?
That's why
That's not only is that a great point. We had Benny Blades and Tolbert Bain sitting in these seats, and we had this exact conversation. Like, these kids had no choice at that time. They had no choice but to, play through pain, play through an injury, play through whatever, because, you're going to bed hungry if you don't come through. You're going to bed hungry, man. Not today, man. Everything's given before earned. And that's got to be tough for him as a coach.
Yep.
I'm just speaking from me. I'm old school, and I have some age on coach. It's we're in a different dynamic, man. Kids just want that bag without production or a resume to say, I earned it.
That's why I've never been an NFL guy. I don't really like to watch the NFL because they're just overpaid. Like, they don't. The passion in college before this NIL stuff was there, and that's what I loved about it. They were fighting for that opportunity. And for you as a coach, like, what do you do when somebody comes and poaches on your own kids? Like, what, like these bigger high schools like St. Thomas, whatever, they come in and they're poaching. What do you do?
I'm like Nevin. Fuck it. If you come get him and he want to go. We just feel like we'll make another kid.
Yep.
Like, every year we're sending kids D1. We're sending receivers Division 1. Our receivers are getting offers. So if a kid decides to leave, we'll just find the next kid. Like,
if I'm a college coach, or if I'm a head coach or a personnel guy, and I happen to be watching this is a guy. How could you not want to come and try poach this guy for your college program? Like, what are you thinking about, man? This dude's been in the game. Coach, how long? How many years?
20
years in South Florida as a high school coach. He's put multiple NFL guys in, not just NFL guys, top flight, first round guys. What do you looking at? Like, what are you looking at? Who do you think gets it done? It's dudes like this who are on the firing line. His players former players make millions of dollars now. You know what I mean? But he's a coach at heart. He loves doing this. You know what I mean?
Make him a receivers coach.
Exactly.
Next level.
Next level.
That's where I see you at. That's my personal
This
opinion.
introduction turned into an audition for me.
Maybe so. All right, final question here. And we're going to talk about a receiver who you formerly coached. He's been getting a ton of backlash right now. Xavier Restrepo. He ran a bad 40. He came out and said that he pulled his hammy a little bit. Just want to give your perspective from someone who's previously coached him. I have my own opinion. I love the kid. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a steal, especially now if he goes late in the draft because of what just happened. But what's your perspective on?
Some guys are just football players. Like, some kids, their 40 doesn't matter. They are football players. And after it came out, I sent him a DM on Twitter. I was like, don't let this define you. Your film speaks for itself. Your passion speaks for itself. So wherever you get that opportunity, just make the most of it. And he was like, love, coach, appreciate it, 100. And I think he's going to be a great football player because even after he ran the 40, if you look at him running routes, did that look 4.8?
No.
That looked 4.9?
No.
He was explosive.
He's
he was
quick.
getting across. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
He's not track distance guy.
Right.
He's quick.
Right.
You know, and that's why I think he'll make it if he's in a system like, let's just make it Wes Welker type of system. You know, that's where I see him fitting. I think he needs to find the right system.
Of course.
You know, personally, he needs a good quarterback.
Guys
That's really
like
what
that.
it is.
Guys like that are quarterbacks' best friends.
Yep.
Right, because they're always getting open.
Yep.
They're always finding.
When the
They
play-
are 3rd and 8
Yes.
magicians.
Yep. And that's him.
That was Cam Ward rolling out of the pocket. The play's dead, and he finds Restrepo for a 10-yard pass.
There's NFL guys over the course of time, Ricky Proles. There's certain guys that are just straight on pain in the asses.
Yes.
Yep.
Where did that guy come from? I don't know, but he's always open.
And I think that's him. Like, if he gets in the right fit with the right coach, he's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Because you can't. How many people have covered him in college? Like, he's always open. Yeah. So I think he'll figure it out.
Absolutely. You have anything else you want to say?
No, I'm thrilled to have this conversation with Coach, and I love, from me personally, because I'm a football junkie and aficionado at that level where I know where it really starts. That's where it starts even prior to that.
Right.
But man, that's where the thrill is, man.
Absolutely.
That's where the thrill is. I love it, man. This has been a real this has been special for me.
Absolutely. Me too. It's very close to the heart, man, because I'm an alumni and you're my coach. So can't thank you enough for coming on. Before you guys leave, please click that subscribe button. We're giving you guys videos every week. What's better than what we just gave you? But as always, we'll catch you on the next one.